When you are on the planet, when you find Tramacom, I live in Washington, D.C. metropolis. There's goes that a hungry man is an angry man. In a booming economy, fewer people are hungry, hence the diminishing tendency for social strife. In a bid to examine why Africa's poor economic engineering and mathematics, with Professor Kimbu, we talked math. Today, we turn our attention to science, and our point man is yet another eminent scholar, Professor Kimbu. We will get to him in a few minutes. But first, here is a song with this week's editor's economies. Such professionals, if we must call them that, today, F-A-K-E, fake. Well, that is yet a piece of cake. Regrettable, isn't it? But far from that, has brought about the Industrial Revolution and changed the fate of the world completely. As a critical way to understand and explore and engage with the world, that calls on every family, that calls on every parent to encourage and to motivate their children to engage in the study of such science subjects as biology, chemistry, and physics. These subjects, along with mathematics and technology, challenge the mind to go from hypothesis through theory to concrete, consumable products and or usable products, put them on their feet, and they ask themselves, what should we do? Well, it challenges parents and communities and governments to provide learners and teachers with the tools and materials needed to engage in such critical thinking as will lead to the discovering of ways and means of producing, not just consuming. So science challenges us to produce goods and not just to consume them. It challenges us to learn how to fish, not just not just eat the fish or be given the fish from China. No, well, that's a Chinese thing anyway. Africaonline enjoins all of us, therefore, to not shy away from encouraging the teaching and learning of science. For grasping those subjects, it is only by challenging our minds to convert theory to practice will we be able to produce our own clothes. We will be able to make our own cars. We will be able to come up with how to transform and store our agricultural products, most of which get rotten in the bush because we don't know how else to preserve them. And of course, if we learn science and we use science to transform things, we will be able to arrest in their tracks our overdependence on the West and or the East. If we do all that, we would also put an end to the brain drain, which continues to deprive Mother Africa of its human capital. Years gone by have drained and thereby, in the 21st century, allowed that to continue to happen. Africaonline is therefore in the front lines, raising awareness on and about those things that make life and living near impossible in Africa. And we will never relent as this month of October further emboldens us with its so many awareness events. Breast Awareness Month, Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and you can name the rest of the awarenesses that are supposed to be raised in October. Why? We don't know, but October is the first and the longest month of the fall season because it is 31 days. Fall will end on December 21st, so you cannot say December. Well, for now and for today, let us focus on science awareness. Let us encourage our children and our children's children to focus more on STEM. That is the STEM education curriculum, without which, of course, it will neglect. And so STEM education, with its science, technology, engineering, and mathematics subset, will help us to put bread on the table, not just on Sunday, but every day of the week. Because those subjects, that curriculum, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, will open our minds, will challenge our thinking, and help us bring about those that make life whole, thinking on what holiness lies in science. Over to you, Divine.
Yes, thank you very much, Attorney Pankendeke. We will be talking a lot about, the subject that you just raised. We have a special guest today, and our guests on Africaonline. Asong, are you hearing us?
I am with you.
Beautiful. Our guest today is Professor Kimbu, and this is a highly qualified organic chemist with over 30 years of research and teaching experience in the academia and 8 years experience in pharmaceutical research and development. He has a long-standing interest with a track record in the discovery of biologically active chemicals from plants for treatment of diseases. That gets my attention, and I think yours too, Asa. Professor Kimbu has vast experience in the isolation, purification, and characterization of plant-based biologically active constituents using modern techniques. Now, before we introduce Professor Kimbu Samuel, those wanting to participate live from Oakland can dial 712-775-7035. I repeat, if you are listening to us outside the United States, dial 001-712-775-7035. And when prompted, to enter the code 356613. Again, my name is Divine Champo. I'm in the Washington, D.C. metropolis. Good afternoon. Hello there, Professor Kimbu.
Hello.
Yes, Professor Kimbu, are you on the line now?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Beautiful. Question number one. What is the distinction between science and technology? How far would science, that's part B of my question, how far can science go to solve the economic problems of Africans? Over to you, sir.
Yeah, I think that science is actually the foundation for technology. In order to be successful in technology, you need a very good background in science. I will try to illustrate this with a very simple example. If you want to manufacture something like aspirin, which is my area of specialization, you really need to have a good foundation in science. The foundation requires you to work not only theory in science, but also to have lab experience. And the lab experience is the one that is going to actually be applicable to you in technology. Now, this example, I will just illustrate by saying that, okay, as a teacher, if you get into the classroom and then tell the students, synthesize aspirin from this chemical and this chemical, well, it works, what you have suggested as a teacher, but in the lab, it might not always give you exactly what you expected. Like, for example, you could mix those chemicals and not get aspirin. But if you don't get aspirin, now the teacher asks, why did you not get that aspirin? The student now, from his background in science, understands that if you didn't get it, certain things went wrong. And what are these things that went wrong? He starts to investigate. Maybe I didn't mix the correct amount of chemicals, or maybe the chemicals that I mixed were not pure and gave me something different. And that opens up the child's mind. So tomorrow, in the technological area, when he's in the pharmaceutical company manufacturing this, he already has that sound background that he acquired in the laboratory. So that to me is the basic difference between science and technology. Science should be as a foundation to applying the knowledge you have acquired in theory and in practice in the labs to your technological outside, because it is that experience that will actually open your mind and make it possible for you to even invent and discover things that are new. Did I give an explanation that was clear?
Yes, you did, Doctor. And this is Asonglefa and Kemdeke. Thank you so much for being with us today. I just wanted us to break it down. When we say science, a father at science. So maybe you want to break that down for our listener in the village.
All right. Basically, science includes subjects like biology, chemistry, physics, math, which is usually studied in secondary schools and in secondary schools. All right, you need that particular background to be able to actually chemistry, biology, or physics. Mathematics, of course, is a required subject. You cannot understand science without having a good background of mathematics. So what happens is that good background actually gives you an understanding, a good foundation for being able now to follow up. But unfortunately, in some of our countries, that good foundation is really lacking because our communities don't, some of the responsible people in our communities don't actually give priority to science. So they don't make the environment or provide the facilities that are good for bringing up a good science student or giving the students a good foundation. So basically, science involves the study of biology, chemistry, physics, math, of course, being central in schools. And a good foundation would require that the schools provide good labs where the theory can be done alongside with the practicals, and that practical experience actually makes the student to understand more, and that prepares him well for the future.
And that practical part you mentioned, Doctor, is what here in the West they call hands-on education. Unfortunately,
exactly.
Back in the African continent, many schools exist on paper only. Well, the teaching process is only theoretical. There are hardly labs. I was fortunate to go to Sase College where we had some good labs, but I know that not every school had those labs. So is this a drawback? Of course, I know, yes. But what can be done to improve the situation?
It is certainly a drawback. Actually, I lived the experience when I was teaching at the university. At the beginning, we could perform at least 12 experiments within the school year for a large number of students, and the students were actually involved in the experiments. By the time I left the university, unfortunately, it had become what they call a dry lab, where the teacher stands in front of the students and then just demonstrates what you are going to observe when you perform an experiment. To me, it was a shame. I felt so bad and so on and worked against it. But of course, it didn't succeed. My struggle didn't succeed and so on. So it was sad. But what I would suggest is, I don't know if, especially in the private schools, this is an area where if you have an alma mater, you're from Sase, as you indicated, whether if you have some way of actually making contributions to make it easy for the labs to function well so the students coming out can have a good background. And then, of course, some of the obstacles that we have in developed countries is even the way that those in power make it difficult for us to even acquire those science equipment. And the problem is, does the system make it possible with maybe tax, making actually things brought in for educational purposes, making it easy for them to get into the various schools or so. Those are some of the obstacles that you will face in some of these our developed countries. But basically, I don't know, if we have a way like those who have graduated from some of these schools to make a small contribution by making it possible to get some of those equipment and chemicals that are necessary for bringing up these students and opening their minds, we could do it. I don't know what some so corrupt. Government schools, of course, don't have those facilities, and there is no way you can count on them for actually making them available because of the system, the corrupt system in which we live.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion about appealing to the alumni associations not to allow these things to come into the country, because those governments are very leery of foreign, or rather of diaspora associations, of ex-students who are outside of diasporans. They think that you are instead attempting to overthrow them and so on and so forth, which unfortunately is a bad way of thinking, because we out in the diaspora, we are here bent on helping make things better than we passed through them. So I hope that time will come when the government will recognize the fact that those in the diaspora are contributors to development, not obstacles to that development. Doctor?
Yes, I think that it's unfortunate that, well, in a real democratic system, you could vote out all those fellows and so on who are not contributing to the development of the country. But you know that our electoral system is such that sometimes even by the time you go to vote and so on, the results are already known. So there is no way you can even kick them out by just through a democratic system whereby you vote them out, and that is unfortunate. So and if you were to vote some people who were actually thinking first of the country, the future of these young ones, at least some changes will come by. But I don't know what we can really do to kick out these fellows who are just an obstacle to development.
That is the question. But then we have to go back to the classroom. What can teachers at their level do without, with the limited resources they have, to be able to make the teaching of science more attractive to students? Because I know some students don't do it because they are so scared of the reality they'll face in their desert labs.
Well, I look at it this way. First of all, our teachers actually qualified to teach, because as I'm saying, science requires being in the lab to actually orient the students properly. Well, the teacher training colleges that I know back in Cameroon, they don't even have the equipment to train the teacher. So if you don't train the teacher well, how does the teacher even train the student? So it requires that starting from the teacher should have a good background, orientation, which he actually derived from his training back in the training school, and that will actually make it easy for the teacher to transmit his knowledge to the students. I have heard from students actually sometimes saying that, well, I didn't like this subject because the way the teacher approached it and so on. But I think that if a teacher understands a subject well, he will actually deliver it in such a way that the student will be attracted to the subject. Actually, that's the technique I used in my chemistry class, and most of my students pass their exams. First of all, you need to master the subject and know what it is before you can transmit to the student in such a way that the student understands it and likes the subject. This will certainly be lacking if in the training of the teacher, he didn't acquire and understand the subject that well in order to offer it in such a way that the student is attracted to it. So it starts by the system. Getting schools for training teachers which are properly equipped to train teachers who have a good background to transmit that knowledge to the students.
And that calls for a great awareness in the teachers and in the administrative authorities that they direct the resources to where they are needed most, rather than pilfering on these resources and depriving the schools and the students of what they need in the classrooms.
Exactly.
That being said, growing up, Dr. Kimbu, you were able to learn the subject and be able to be who you are today. How did you do it in those days?
Oh, my goodness. Well, to tell you frankly, well, I'm a product of Furabe College to start with. Yeah. Furabe College, time that it was a wonderful university. And then, of course, I came to Yaoundé and did the master's and the doctorate there. But I'll tell you that actually my knowledge for this master's and doctoral data came from my connection with the University of Glasgow, where I did most of my research work. And you know, Glasgow is a lab that is well equipped and so on.
So my Glasgow in Scotland.
More experience in when I went for sabbatical at the University of Glasgow, sponsored even by the Royal Society of Chemistry, not even sponsored by Yaoundé. And even when I had the sponsorship from the Royal Society, the University of Yaoundé was trying to block it and so on, to tell you how difficult it is for developing countries and so on, sometimes, you know, to get things moving in the right direction. So luckily, they finally accepted it, and I was there for 1 year again in a research lab. And overwhelmingly, those are labs that are well equipped and so on. Scientific equipment is quite expensive. But actually, so if you want to develop and so on, you have to sacrifice, get what is needed and so on for development. So that is how I acquired my knowledge. It was largely because of my connection with the University of Glasgow where I studied. And
so what would you tell a young person today, striving, hoping, looking forward to being a renowned scientist when he grows up?
Oh, I can say, well, I can encourage the students to be really devoted in the sciences, make sure that he becomes a friend of math, which is usually very key in the sciences, and that is what sometimes discourages the students and so on from doing the sciences, because they say sciences involve a lot of math and they don't like mathematics. Again, the student will actually run into obstacles, because if you don't have a good teacher who can get you through the math, you will not be inspired to do it. So the key thing is the students should like math, and liking math will enable them to study the various science subjects, chemistry, biology, physics, and so on, because, of course, there's no science subject that goes without mathematics. Yes.
In the days gone by, a girl child was kind of not very involved in science. But by what I understand these days, there are even more girl children doing science subjects than boys. What do you think might have contributed to the girl child orienting towards science more than the boy child these days?
An interesting thing is that one of the math students in my class who did even better than me was a girl. I used to admire her. But
yes,
what I'm saying is, what should really motivate even girls or boys to do math is the way the teacher approaches math. If you approach mathematics by intimidating the children, they'll be scared off. I was involved in a class some time ago in the secondary school classes and so on, where sometimes you would ask a question to a teacher, and the teacher will answer that you should have known how to do this and so on. That was an evasive way of answering that I don't know how to do it and so on. And then the student gets intimidated. And of course, how do you expect a student to get motivated if the teacher is instead asking you and telling you have asked the question because you don't know something, and then the teacher instead tells you that you should have known this and so on. So the girls, I think maybe certainly it's the motivation of the teachers. I've heard girls say that I like the way this teacher approached the subject, and so it got me interested. Let me just tell you this as a personal experience with my daughter.
Yeah.
My daughter left Cameroon and came here. She was a pure art student. She didn't like art science because of the way mathematics was being taught. You might like to know that my daughter has not only liked mathematics when she came here, and she told me that it was because of the way the teacher was teaching. She ended up with a degree in chemistry, and today she's doing pharmacy. So I think it all depends on, and then of course, things would become easy. So are the teachers properly formed in such a way that they know how to tackle the subject and make it simple for the children? That is the question.
That is the question indeed. This is Africaonline. We are talking science this Sunday. If you're just joining Africaonline, please, we are also on YouTube and we are on Facebook. And of course, we are on our usual chat room. If you're just coming in and you have a question for Dr. Kimbu, please come forward and ask your question. Anyone there with a question, please go ahead. Well, apparently nobody yet, but we have to continue to encourage us to learn French at the college, because this lady who came to teach us French in Form 1, that when she came to class and said bonjour, and there were 5 or 6 boys who said bonjour, she focused on those students, and the rest of us were like, okay, French is not our thing. And of course, going to University of Yaoundé in those days, we had to learn French because the studies were 99% in French. So that motivation is very important. Of course, the child also has to have personal motivation. I believe the doctor is an example.
Yes. Yes, she has to.
Yes. So
she has to have personal motivation. But one thing that I failed to discuss is to also mention is that the teacher should be motivated with good salaries, encouraging them not to earn some kind of meager salary that makes it even very difficult for him to concentrate and teach. The situation is even worse in Cameroon, where even as a teacher, you can be posted somewhere and you stay for 1 year without getting a salary and just struggling to survive. So there must be salary motivation. We know that actually teachers in the whole world and so on are usually not compensated correctly, even because of the value of their contribution to the society. But our own situation in Cameroon is pathetic, where the salaries are extremely low. And I doubt
they're hardly paid on time. They're extremely low, and they're not paid on time.
Yes. So those are some of the things that should be improved, but some of them are outside our limits because it's the system, the way the system operates.
Yes. Now, let's boil down to you as an individual, as a motivator, as a teacher. How did you get where you are today?
Well,
Go right ahead.
Yeah.
Take it
Yeah, certainly. I told you earlier that I studied in Fulabé College. That was a difficult one and so on. You know, it all needed a lot of sacrifice and determination. Determination in what we're doing. And sometimes trying to go over your obstacle by making some sacrifices. Like sometimes when we had to do some experiments and so on, you would stay in the lab for long periods of time to get results and so on. And to be frank, as I said, the environment, like the one that I studied in Glasgow, was very good for studies. And so if you ran into difficulty, you had, of course, your supervisors who were ready and knew what to do to help you out. So we had to struggle through, but needing support from your supervisors who were really experts in the area. So it wasn't easy. Science is not easy at any point, but it requires a lot of sacrifice, determination in what you are doing to actually overcome it.
And when you have a ready ear to listen to you and support you, you are even more motivated to move forward.
Yes. Yes,
so
that's true.
That's what by the introduction Divine gave, you are involved in a lot of investigating and coming up with things. How far have you gone, and what is the way forward for you individually?
I would like to say, well, investigation and so on. During my, I'll just try to give some examples of how I went about with some investigations and some of the obstacles that I came across and so on. And that blocks me from going ahead, and also it has the effect of the people back home. All right, I did some research work on a plant. This is my area of research, natural products. And these are plants that grow locally. Some of the seeds of these plants are being used, for as condiments in preparations, food preparations. So I analyzed the seeds, and then I stumbled on an antifungal. The problem with that, with my analysis, was that we had structures for analyzing for activity, antimicrobial or antifungal activity. So this was done outside. The results were so good. I mean, antifungal medication is quite expensive. So what happened was, All right. And we try to find a way to move ahead with exploiting this. And of course, we got blocked. And what happened was the Japanese actually synthesized this particular antifungal, sent their data to me to compare with mine, and it agreed. And I thought maybe, I told them, can we just work together? And that was the end of it. So I'm not surprised that the Japanese might be preparing this antifungal and using it already. But it's something that if we had a way to develop it in our own place, it will make it possible even for the local people there who know this plant so well and it grows all around the place to bring the seeds and then we exploit it to the common good of the people around us. So these are some of the obstacles that I had during my research and so on. And this is not only one of them. There are so many that I can explain. So
I understand. Yes, it's unfortunate because our governments are sitting on their hands and not following up to ensure that we get what we want out of the community in which we live. We live in a wider world, and why not sign agreements with other countries that can support the educational systems in your country? Those are things that our politicians, our education authorities fail to do. Yet they benefited from those things at their own time. So that being said, now that we are talking STEM, and it looks relatively new in Africa, what should the governments, the same governments sitting on their hands, what should they do to embrace STEM as such in the school systems across their countries? What would you recommend?
Sadly speaking, is that some of the people who are even leading us in our government are educated people and so on. There is no doubt that STEM is the basis for the development for now and the future. They have to understand that teaching the sciences and teaching them very profoundly is a basis for the development of any country. If you don't open up the child's mind, our children are really very talented, but you need to open up their minds to be inventive, to integrate into all these various sectors. But to do so, it needs a very good foundation in the sciences. And getting a good foundation in the sciences, making sure that you provide the means, the facilities, the good labs for them to be able to acquire this knowledge in order to develop and make this important contribution. Without that, it's a bit difficult. A child might be intelligent, but he needs to know how a car is running to be able to actually develop a car and make it even run faster. But if a child has not seen a car and tries to see how it's operating, it makes it a little difficult for him to actually improve on it. So we need basically that our government should understand that they should make their facilities available for our students to have a very good foundation, not only in theory, but also in practicals and so on, because it's from there that they can grow and end up in making very relevant contributions to the country.
So it is very important for hands-on education. Our government have those means. I remember Ombe in those days, Ombe College.
Exactly.
In
yes, Ombe had those things.
Yes.
Yes, and you could see actually that the Ombe graduates to this technical education. We should lay emphasis these days on technical education too, which opens up the child to so many other areas and so on. And the child can be even independent after getting his qualification. He can be innovative and start off doing something without actually relying on the government. Technical education should be emphasized at this point. Like Ombe, the example you're giving of Ombe.
Yes. And we look forward to one day having that happen. We hope it's not a pipe dream. And Africaonline will collaborate with anyone who is ready and willing to have create the awareness back home so that governments not just continue to say, oh, we have this school, we have that school, but be able to provide the resources necessary to have the students and the teachers do the job that they are there to do. That being said, one more thing, because I know you've tried to work, as you said. Now, if we were able to have these things, would you personally want to set up shop in Cameroon, for example, or some other African country, to be able to help create that awareness, help motivate students, help provide the environment for which students can learn and be able to become proficient in these areas?
I would certainly want to do it. I've had a lot of experience, not only in research and at the university level, but I've had overwhelming experience in the pharmaceuticals. I would certainly be prepared to help set this up. But when you're talking of Cameroon, I start to hesitate because I know what Cameroon is. You know, when you come there to set it up, first of all, the bureaucracy is such that, I mean, there'll be so many bottlenecks that you might end up being frustrated. You know what I'm talking about?
I understand.
To do it and so on, I'm prepared. I have a lot of experience on what it means, and I'm prepared to do it anywhere that it's convenient and has no obstacles on the way. Mm.
We wish you well in that direction, and as I might have said on WhatsApp chat group, you may have to approach some grant writers so that they help you write some grants to be able to get the necessary resources to be able to go invest somewhere in the continent. Because as we are saying, we need to focus on the continent rather than on the West.
Yes, sure. We really need to make sure that our people, actually our people are very intelligent. They are capable of doing things and so on if we just give them the opportunity. In Ghana, a friend of mine in Ghana told me of students collaborating, I think with the Japanese, to even send a satellite into. We need to have the opportunities and so on. We can do things. But we have a lot of systems, government systems.
It is the truth. It is not fake news. It is the truth because it is fact-based, and we can prove it that governments are not the promoters of development. They are rather the obstacles to the development. So we're not far-fetching anything here. We're not stating untruths. We're telling the truth. That being said,
yes.
This is Africaonline. Anyone came in? I think somebody came in, but if you have a question, please go ahead and ask it to our guest. Anyone with a question online?
Yes, I have a question.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you for always being there to stream this program for us.
20 years, 21 years. And there's a difference in how students are encouraged to be active in the learning process. I mean, some of it can seem, in some cases to teachers back home as being disrespectful if students challenge, questions they have in the classroom or certain subjects that they're being taught. So my thing is, should it be encouraged more of a more collective and more open learning process than what is normal, thinking outside the box and questioning what the teacher says?
Yes, I understand. That's a very interesting question. Where I taught, I will tell you that in a classroom you could have as many as 100 students. In some classrooms you have 500 students. Can you imagine that, a teacher teaching
500 students?
Yeah. Yes, but now you come to...
No, I can imagine it. Like most of my undergrad classes are like that.
But 25 students in the classroom, and some 30, and not many. You never get up to 100 or so. So in that way, the teacher has more control, more access to his students and so on. He takes care of his students. It becomes some kind of interaction between the student and the teacher. But there in Cameroon and so on, how do you take care of 100 students and you give attention to all of them, all their needs, all their problems? It becomes difficult, even if you are a motivated teacher. You see, the number is too large, and that is sadly the situation back there. You have some amphitheaters where they call Amphi 500, and that takes 500 students. Some Amphi 100, that takes 100 students. And of course, not to talk of teachers. The teachers are even lacking. The teachers are lacking. So the way you teach back in Cameroon is so different from the way you teach. Even if you are motivated in Cameroon, the numbers of students are too large for you to take care of every student, students' problems. In America and so on, it's so different. And because the numbers are small, the teacher can interact with the students, very easily and understand their problems and help them out. So did that help a bit to understand? Good question.
Yes, it is. And I got a follow-up question is, do you think encouraging, teacher evaluations will be a step forward in weeding out some of those that are a hindrance to education? Because like here, in most of the universities, they do the teacher evaluations. You don't know who is going to. It's basically anonymous. Every student is required to do it. The teachers are not allowed in the room while the students are giving the evaluation. And in this case, this is how they can get to the university is able to get feedback from the students if a teacher is actually effective. So what I'm asking is that going to be something that can be implemented back home in universities or in learning facilities that can be encouraged to kind of weed out teachers that are not necessarily doing the right thing? I'm not saying bad teachers, but if a teacher is not actually an effective teacher, is that a way for the university to get some feedback from the students on maybe some feedback, as in it being just isolated based on performance?
Yes, that's a very good question. I understand that, actually that's a way of actually weeding out teachers who are not very productive. If they were to institute that back in my country, that would be very helpful. But there it's a bit difficult. Things are not as straightforward as they are here. The students can still evaluate back. If that was being done back in my country, they could still evaluate. But because of the system being so corrupt and so on, the teacher might not end up being sanctioned because probably he has some connections with those in administration and probably even the government. So it's a system that is not as straightforward as it is here. But if they were to introduce or to implement something like teacher evaluation by students, doing it anonymously, it could be very helpful. I'm sure that is very helpful here and so on in making sure that teachers who are teaching the students are qualified and those who are not qualified are eliminated. That's a good idea, but it cannot be really properly implemented back in my place. I'm sure, they thought about it some time ago, but somewhere along the line, it just fell by the side. It was not implemented because there were some probably not proper to be implemented.
Well, we look forward to that being implemented in colleges and universities in Africa, because a teacher evaluation is a very important aspect of ensuring that teachers are up to the task and that they remain faithful to their jobs and they do the right thing. Because I teach in a community college and I teach adults and people who are more than 50 years old, and they have this evaluation at the end of every semester. So it is something that is very important and very helpful. It keeps people on their feet. Back home, I don't know if teachers are writing lesson notes. I doubt if people are revising their notes. I doubt if people are going for refresher courses, because I know these refresher courses may be available. But again, as you say, the system is so corrupt that only my cousin or my uncle will get the opportunity, even if it's not he or she is not teaching a particular subject. It is unfortunate, but we have to continue to fight against it. We have to continue to create the awareness.
Yes.
Now, Prof, tell me, you have, apart from the thing that you did with the Japanese, you've done a lot more than just that. I want to speak about some other things some of the other inventions that you've done, which unfortunately are lying in your drawer.
Yeah. There is one that is so interesting that I would like to talk about it. I was not even the one who invented it, but I was asked to be involved in it at a particular time. It starts by saying that, corrupt forest in Cameroon is actually protected.
Yes.
Corrupt forest is very protected, so a British botanist came trying to evaluate all the plant species that were available in the forest, and they came across a species which is called Ancistocladus coropensis.
Yes, I know it. Yes.
At that time, National Institute of Health in America was undergoing some kind of screening of all plant products and so on, no matter where they came from. So they screened these plants, and interestingly, it had some HIV/AIDS anti-activity, very potent. So they were very excited about it. So excited that actually they were able to go to the extent of even elucidating, trying to know the structures of those compounds that were very active on the AIDS virus. So what happened was they got to the point where they started testing, but testing showed that there was a lot of toxicity, and because of that toxicity, they couldn't apply it on humans. So they came to me at the lab in Cameroon and so on, and asked me for suggestions on how to get that particular structure less toxic. I had an idea, but actually implementing the idea meant requiring good lab structures in order to carry it out with some equipment. I got blocked there because I couldn't have those lab structures with equipment, and so I have the sample of the product lying here now, still waiting when one day I'll be able to go ahead with the analysis. But to be frank, interestingly, that particular plant is found only in that Koro forest. They tried to see if they could locate it anywhere else and so on. It was only found in the Koro forest. And what also happened was it was grown around Yaoundé so as to make sure that we could get enough material to go ahead with the analysis. But as I say, unfortunately, I couldn't continue because of lack of the facilities to go ahead with analysis.
Yes, I am very aware of that plant. I actually saw it because I was working in Boya at the time, and I was in Radio Boya, and they actually had a mission to the corrupt forest to look at it. They tried to plant it at the Botanic Garden in Victoria.
Exactly.
I think it didn't do well.
Yes.
Somebody said that when you transplant it, the properties are lost or something like that. I don't know how scientific that is. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I know that you've been involved in so many things. It is a country that...
If we have time, there's another one I can still talk about.
Yeah,
it's a common plant that grows around Yaoundé. It's a forest plant, the back of a tree. Actually, if you stroll around the town of Yaoundé, you will see people having this plant back in bottles and so on. They use it for treating jaundice and so on.
Yes.
I've developed this plant and so on and discovered that it has a lot of potential. It treats malaria, it treats liver hepatitis, especially B, and it cleanses the liver very well. So it's just a single plant product, the back of a tree. It's not a mixture of bats or so. And it's very effective. I've used it on so many people, and the results are really overwhelming. So that is one of the things I've developed too. So
I have a question. Liver regeneration, or the one with that was able to treat HIV.
You fry it, and then of course use certain chemicals to get the active
to extract
the active ingredient.
Okay.
There to extract. But actually, what is happening is that no alcohol itself is even not good for you. Oh, no, it isn't. Yes.
Okay.
Does that is that clear?
Yes, it is.
So the worry, and I know you've already answered a lot of the questions, the why, is, you had South Korea, you have Singapore, Indonesia, even Vietnam. They came from behind and overtook a lot of African countries in becoming, you can say, some major countries that produce things, that make things for the rest of the world. the question that I have is it the type of science that is taught at African countries or African national schools? If yes, because I remember in some of our school systems back in Cameroon, they taught us how to dissect cockroaches and lizards. Are these the things that our children need? If not, now, part B, that's not what they need. But the part B of my question is, what do they need and at what level? At what levels, what kind of science be taught or start to be taught to our children?
Yeah. Okay. Well, like I say, the whole thing depends, first of all, do our countries actually give priority to science and development? It depends on what the governments have put as policies, and if the policies are to promote science. I think those countries actually give priority to science and therefore develop policies that were to encourage science. And the educational system too has to be oriented to manufacturing, and therefore your training should not only end up with producing somebody who has a general degree, but he should have technical know-how in various areas so that they can be useful in the industries and manufacturing industries. And I think probably that's how they develop, because of the orientation, starting with the government, giving priorities that tend towards development, those industries and so on, and actually educating the students, giving their educational orientation in such a way that they can work conveniently in those industries. And that is why I was even talking of this technical education, which can give you a hands-on or some kind of good orientation with a good scientific background in getting things done in the industry. So I think probably our governments here have not given priority like those other countries to those things that are necessary for developing and manufacturing those things. I don't know if actually clarifies things. It all depends on the governments and so on, and the orientation they give to development. And I think this is largely lacking in our African countries.
Follow-up question, Doctor. I have a friend who used to teach history in Cameroon. That friend now is a director of a cluster of hospitals. He has a master's degree in nursing. Now, back home in Cameroon, it was out of the question. I mean, to him, if you told him that one day in future he would be having a master's degree in nursing, he would have asked you, are you out of your mind? Now, I'm not out of my mind asking this question. It's 4 o'clock. We will come back on this question with the doctor after Reverend Pam, who is not signaling she's on the line, make some announcements, and probably she'll make some statements also, then we go from there. The questions, ask the question again, and we need to get your answer. Reverend Pam in Houston, good afternoon. How is Houston today?
Very hot. Good afternoon, Divine, Song, Professor Kimbu, all our listeners. Thank you so much for accepting to be our guest, not just on the show today, but during the week. And we really, really appreciate you. And I apologize for dialing in late, as we all know, we're talking about STEM this month. There are 5 Sundays in the month of October. Last year, we went with the acronym with STEM in chronological order, but this year, the guest selections, and I know I've missed some of the things our guests talked about, but the question I want to ask our guests is, a country like Brazil, they about 70% of their medication. Big pharma is, I know malaria, which was one of the topics we discussed in the past, and we're going to visit it again. There are people that cook and they boil different plants, somebody. And where is the place of compounding in our community? Because that will do 2 things. It will cure the out of stock syndrome and also counterfeit problems. We're going to be discussing counterfeit drugs as a topic in the near future. But so, where is the place for that in our African community, where do you see that and science playing a role? Because that is science, even though part of it is art, but most of it is science. So we have to put things together to come out with a product. And then, secondly, what is your take on this traditional treatment? You know, what's the science behind it, Dr. Kimbu?
Okay, thanks for that question. Yeah, as I was introduced earlier, I'm a natural, what you call a natural product chemist. And natural product chemists are those who actually are effective. And if it is effective, how can we now exploit it in such a way that it could even be synthesized in the lab, and therefore we even avoid destroying the plants and so on, because some of those plants have grown for over so many 100 years, and if they are not actually protected in a way, they might be eliminated. So that was my area of research, and we were working in collaboration with traditional doctors. To be frank, it wasn't that easy, because sometimes they would think that you are trying to actually benefit from their listing and then let them lose the... Oh. Hello?
Yeah. Go ahead, please.
And then allow them lose their financial benefits. So we normally were supposed to identify the active ingredients in the lab, and with of course, biological testing that followed up after analyzing and separating the various components and identifying their structures. So that was the way we were working, and that is actually how come even some of the medications that you find in the pharmacies, like quinine and so on, were discovered because, it was the local people who were using them for treating malaria and other things. So normally, a natural product chemist doesn't just go into the forest harvesting trees and so on to come and taste, but he has to work in collaboration with the traditional doctor who shows this is this and so on, and then you analyze. But it turns out that sometimes the activity might only be from one of those plants that has been added in the mixture by the traditional doctor. So that was the basis for our analysis. Some of them are fake, some are effective, and some of them are effective and can be useful for developing actually conventional medication. So that was my area of research. I hope that answers part of the question for the refer.
It does, and I wasn't on the air when you were introduced, so I'm glad that was your area of research. But before you go to the other one, have you worked with bitter cola? Because let me tell you, right now I stopped bitter cola because it helps me with indigestion. I know there's some Nigerian professors that have been working on it. In your research, did you ever work with it? And I hear some people use it for cold, some people use it for GI problems, and the men that are listening, don't hold me to this, I hear it's a great aphrodisiac. I don't know. Maybe it's better than Viagra. I don't know. I'm not a man. But these are just claims that is made. These are claims that is made. I don't know of any man who uses it for that. But so I don't know if the professor can shed some light on bitter cola.
Yes. Oh, to tell you the truth, I eat bitter cola regularly.
Uh-huh.
I do eat it regularly. Well, actually, bitter cola is from the family which is called Garcinia. I don't know if you have not heard or so over the TV or something. Some Garcinia kind of there is a form of Garcinia that is can be used for weight loss. Yes, and so on. That is in that family. Actually, I've not worked on it because I already know I already know the components that are in bitter cola, some chemicals that we call flavonoids. And generally, those flavonoids are good. If you've heard of antioxidants and all those things, those chemicals are capable of doing that. And if you can get antioxidants into your system, you can derive a lot of benefit from it. So I would encourage you to eat. And that is why sometimes when you eat, you have relief in your stomach, it's good and so on. It does a lot of things. And to tell you the story of bitter cola, back in Cameroon some time ago, the French people were actually buying bitter cola and sending it to France. And what they were cutting from this bitter cola were those compounds that we call flavonoids. And those flavonoids are also good for the heart, you know, as antioxidants and so on. They were using it to make some of their heart medications and so on. Antioxidants are good. As I say, I eat bitter cola even regularly. And as an aphrodisiac, so I hope it does. But bitter cola is good because of the chemicals that are inside. I would encourage you to eat it regularly, and it can relieve not only in your stomach, as you were saying, but also in so many other ways, blood circulations, heart, and so on. The chemicals are well known. We know the structures.
Okay,
Yeah.
great.
Yes, Dr. Kimbu, apart from bitter cola, I've also heard of the African bush mango, that its seed has some properties which I think there is some company in California now, not just researching into it, but actually producing some, I don't know what, out of it. You know the African bush mango?
Yes, I know. No, I know the story. I even know one of my colleagues who has been key behind it, Julio something.
Yeah,
Dr. Julio something.
Yeah, that's the name.
You mean Julio something now?
Yeah, no, yeah. When I heard about it, it was about him that we're talking. Then somebody said the African bush mango is his specialty.
That's right. It's supposed to be a weight loss type of thing and so on. They seem to have succeeded quite a lot. And I say, but this is what we're doing to lose a lot of things. You know, these are medicinal things that could have been exploited back in our country for benefit and so on if we had the facilities. Imagine that these were being produced now in Cameroon and being exported to other countries and so on. How much money that will generate, not only, right down to the people cultivating this in their farms. So we are missing a lot. We are missing a lot because of the...
Yes, yeah. I am. Let me get to the question that I raised before the top of the hour for Reverend Pam to come in and with announcements and then questions.
You had a question. Yeah, I remember, yes.
Yes, I find it different who was art student, taught history and I think some literature in one of the high schools in Bamenda, moved to the United States and went into nursing. He holds now a master's degree in nursing and other degrees in sciences, and now is the director of a cluster of hospitals. Now, if you had told this gentleman in Cameroon that he can never do sciences, not talk of having a master's degree, he would tell you you're crazy. So it's part of the problem being that some students are made to accept that they can do something and not another thing, or what is, could that be part of the problem? How do you explain a phenomenon like this?
Yeah, I gave you an example of my daughter who left Cameroon as an art student 100% and now is in the School of Pharmacy. Again, this one goes back to the way we are being oriented back at home. First of all, lack of real facilities. Do we even have teachers who can explain things to you in such a way that you are motivated and you like to do the subject? Sometimes a teacher might tell you, oh no, you cannot do these sciences and so on. You go over to the other side and so on. And that discourages you. So you might have a lot of people who are capable of doing the sciences, who have been turned off by their teachers, the way they approach them. And of course, when they come now over here with the facilities and the encouragement that they have, they perform well and move now over to science and succeed. Again, it comes to what I said at the beginning. Our teachers properly formed, trained to be motivating factors to the students if they are properly trained. I mean, I taught chemistry. Everybody says, oh, chemistry is not a very nice subject. But all my students, most of my students appreciated chemistry because of the approach, the way you encourage them, the way you make things simple for them to understand. If you understand a subject, you make it simple, and people will like it, and you'll see the students coming for it, but not sending them away. Some teachers will teach math in such a way that students will be scared of math, and when they're going to the math classroom, they're just praying that the time should run so fast that they get out. So I think, first of all, back home, we should actually have the facilities, the teachers, properly trained, and the labs for facilities to bring us generally became a problem. And I think in part because of the way these subjects are taught students. Going into a math class is like going to a crucifixion valley or whatever, some guillotine. It's horrible. But I have, my children came here and they just enjoyed it. It was an enjoyable experience to sit in a math class. So I think that kind of it needs to be focused on in our African educational system. Let me come back to the bitter cola thing. If you come to a family meeting, let's say it starts at 9 o'clock, in 30 minutes, the woman who brings almost a bucket full of bitter cola is having the bucket empty. And I have to sit and ask myself,
my God.
Oh
my God.
The food, the miondo, the moi moi, and the baked fish sitting right there where people are fighting over bitter cola. And in Cameroon, I used to see my parents, when I accompanied them to their cultural meetings, they're chewing this thing. I'm asking, why are they chewing this bitter stuff? I caught it. Then somebody told me, Divine, you're a man. Try it.
Oh.
I can tell you that bitter cola handles a lot of stuff because I have personally experienced its effects. I just wish that it can be transformed into industrial scale products for people to actually, and Africa is going to really benefit. It's known across the country. I thought it was only in Nigeria and Cameroon. You go to Togo, Togolese, they love it. And a lot of African space, they really love it. Reverend Sam, you are in the pharmaceutical business. You definitely have some comments about this. Let me just tell you something that you didn't mention about the bitter cola that I read over the news. Actually, there is a Nigerian in Walter Reed. You know Walter Reed, I think in Washington, that does research for medication that military people and so on. Walter Reed. Actually, this Nigerian doctor has worked on bitter cola, and do you know that he actually discovered that bitter cola is active against Ebola?
Really? We heard that story when Ebola broke, but we didn't know how.
We still need to understand to find out how far he's gone with his research, because that could be interesting. But overall, as I say, the chemicals in bitter cola, what we call the flavonoids and so on, are very good antioxidants, what we call antioxidants and so on. Free radical, let's call it free radical destroyers and so on, which
that's right.
Free radicals. Sorry, I'm using chemical these things, but they destroy free radicals. Free radicals are so abundant all over the place in our systems and so on, that they attach to molecules and then generate funny things happening in our system. But if you can get something that can destroy these free radicals, that would be good for your health and so on. And that's why bitter cola is good. It's very abundant in flavonoids that destroys free radicals. Okay,
I have a statement on that because I've heard all the different things that it can do. One of the things my dad says though is that the period of it actually germinating takes a long period of time, and I think that's why it's not a viable source for like long-term use, just because it's periodic. That's the plant only germinates certain times, like over years, right?
Yes. I know it very well. It grows in particular areas, particular forests, and it produces all in particular seasons.
Okay.
Yes.
And
that is why our research was good, because if we could synthesize this particular component in the lab, then you will not have to depend on the tree. You'll be able to provide a regular source.
Right, you'll be able to
unfortunately,
synthetically make it.
unfortunately for us, some of those structures are so complicated that we cannot actually do the exact thing when we prepare them in the lab because you have what you call isomers, optical isomers, which are mirror
structures.
Yeah, so in the lab, you cannot get exactly what nature is producing. And that actually is an obstacle to synthesizing them in the lab. So you just have to depend now on nature. But some of those that are simply can be prepared in the lab.
Well, Professor, to be honest with you, I prefer the natural APIs to the synthetic. However, I've never seen a bitter cola plant. As a matter of fact, I never ate that thing in Cameroon, because of its taste. But when somebody, it was an anti-aging specialist, a friend of mine, that don't leave home, bitter cola is her American Express. You can never find her without bitter cola. She's the one that convinced me, and I started eating it. So the benefits outweigh the taste. But how about somebody in Africa doing a bitter cola plantation? I don't care how long the gestational period is, just plant the thing. We know people use it for cold, cough, you name it, and apparently all those Valley people in DC are so excited about bitter cola for different reasons, So we know, those of you in the DMV, you see a parliament coming, please run for your life. So you might be under the influence of bitter cola. But how about, Professor, all these, your colleagues and all these other Africans that have been working on this thing, how about, them collaborating, coming together, and, everybody, bringing in bringing to the table what they've been working on, so we can actually finally, have a breakthrough with this bitter cola. Obviously, the benefits are, limitless, because we can do a plantation of bitter cola and make sure we don't run out.
Yeah. Well, Reverend Palm, to interject there, it may not grow in a plantation. Growing up in Cameroon, it was in the forest around my father's compound, in the forest 10 miles from the house, but not close to the house. So it may not do well in the plantations.
Why not?
Another problem. And it doesn't do well in grassland. It does well only in the forest area, except science has proven otherwise. So those are some scientific things.
To tell you the truth, I mean, I believe that our African scientists can work on this because they can study the habitat of that plant. Like I say, I've never seen it. I only see the final product. And duplicate, just like they do with green rooms, they duplicate the environment. If it's growing in the forest, I don't understand why it will not grow if in a plantation. If we need to put some forestry in the plantation, so be it. But let our scientists, like Dr. Kimbu and Dr. Bisson and all the others that are working on it, let them collaborate and do a bitter cola task force at thing to market they're done in Africa.
Well, it's up to Doctor and his colleagues to see how to do that. It's very important. But Dr. Palm, you have an open invitation to come to the BLM with me to see the tree.
Oh, yes, sure. I'll be welcome. Yes, what Reverend Palm is suggesting is that it's possible for scientists to come out to come together and then study the conditions on which these plants grow and see if they can get them somewhere. Yes. And that is actually fun. Because, to be frank, during my studies, I've noticed that plants are sensitive to their environment. You can take a plant out here that is producing this and grow it in another place, and you don't find the same chemicals that it was producing in the original site. So you study the environment. That doesn't mean that you cannot study the environment. You study the environment and try to replicate it exactly where you are growing the plant. It turns out that I think even most pharmaceutical products now that are plant products maybe are being grown because, as I said, there are some of those active ingredients that cannot be produced in the lab. They can only be produced by the plant because the plant by nature has those enzymes that can actually sit and produce the thing without generating mixtures. So if there is a way, study the environment, see exactly how the plant grows and then try to replicate it, and we can do that and so on. We, of course, do that and then try to produce exactly what the plant produces. That can
and that brings us, yeah, and that brings us back. I don't know if they studied the environment before trying to bring it out of the corrupt forest to plant in the botanic garden.
Yeah. And they planted it around Yaoundé, and it worked. It was producing the chemicals that eventually grew in Yaoundé, and we were able to identify the chemicals in it. Okay. So it's a matter of looking at the environment that is actually like the original environment, and that will work.
Yeah.
Prof, I have a question. This is Reverend Ham, and I don't know. Pardon me, this has been asked before, discussed before I got on the air. You know, we eat a lot of bitter leaf in Africa. They call it, what do they call it in your area? Onugu.
Olubu.
Onugu, okay. Yeah. Different people eat different things. And just the nightmarish experience of washing the bitter leaf to get the bitterness out. But I read somewhere, was not in the literature, I think it was on the internet. I don't believe everything I read on the internet. But that, and that's not my source of education, but I read somewhere that it helps with blood pressure. And I want to find out if in your scientific studies and research in Africa, if you ever work with bitter leaf, and in case there's any merit to this story, why can't we put the stuff in capsules, you know, and treat all these Africans that have, you know, all these problems for high blood pressure?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unfortunately, I didn't work on bitter leaf. I think I've also read that this thing that shows a lot of health benefits of bitter leaf. Vegetables are healthy. But one thing that I've discovered in nature is that we run away from things that are bitter, but it's those things that are bitter that are eaten.
Yeah, that's right.
But when you eat sugar, they tell you what type of damage it can do to your system. But now, if you don't, so a lot of things like nature actually has set a balance. If you want to get the benefit of this, you must sacrifice something. So you discover that in nature, most of those things that are bitter are actually those that actually produce some very useful benefits. I eat bitter leaf regularly. In fact, interestingly, a few days ago, I had to go to a Nigerian store to buy bitter leaf to come and prepare and eat. So vegetables have a lot of health benefits and so on that we cannot even just enumerate and so on. That's why they even tell you eat a lot of vegetables. They're beneficial. And I think that even the bitter leaf too will be beneficial. When I'm washing it, I don't wash it too much so that I remove all the bitter, because the bitter constituents might be helpful. So I'm not research on that, but I believe that at least you can get a lot of benefits from the bitter leaf.
I have a question for Doctor. We've heard about okra, we've heard about water leaf and all that stuff. I encourage my mom to eat a lot of okra.
Exactly. Before you go there, okra is one of my favorite things too. It has a lot of health benefits. You know,
Doctor, I guess I'm going to be asking. Doctor, I guess I'm going to be asking for the list of things you eat with it. That's a different story. I guess the question I have for you now, before we close, is: do you think that Africa has a future, given the richness of its vegetation? Does it provide some hope? And what would it take for us to transform that hope? We seem to be living with the spring behind right our backyard, and we are dying of thirst.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting question. As I say, Africa has the advantage that it has forests that are not available in other areas. So if we can exploit this forest to our benefit, that would be wonderful. But unfortunately, we cannot exploit this forest to our benefit. Just like we have been talking about these medications that we can get from plants. Plants don't grow here in America. Those plants that have medicinal properties don't grow in America. They grow only in the tropics. So if we were, that would be wonderful. So
thank you.
That is what I think about our own riches. We are rich in forests, forests that are rich in medicinal plants, and people will always be sick, and the plants will always produce medication that is difficult to prepare in the lab. And if we were to develop this, that would be wonderful, and it might get us out of our poverty.
Let me go over it. We have just 1 minute to go. Let me go over to Aston, co-moderator. If you have last word, Reverend Pam, and then I close from here. Aston?
No, I just wanted to thank Prof for coming in today and for having been on during the week, providing some more details. But if you have anything that you think our people can benefit from, please don't hesitate to put it on our WhatsApp chat room, and we'll be able to send it forward to our people. Thank you so much, and please stay in touch.
Reverend Pam.
Yeah, Prof, we really appreciate you. You and I are going to continue our conversation offline where we left off last time, and we're going to do stuff to transform Africa through Africaonline. Thank you so much. Over to you, Nidhivan.
And on that note, before I conclude, let me fill my pocket to make sure I have my bitter cola and look for the night for today. Thank you so much. I will eat more of bitter cola than I started eating. Thank you so much. You can't even thank enough, Doctor. You're a treasure full of information. As Sullivan Chemical said, if you have any information whatsoever on those natural things, please go ahead, put it in the forum. We trust you. My name is Divine Chamukong. Will be here next Sunday for yet another edition of the program. Thank you all for listening, and have a wonderful evening.
Thank you all.
Thank you.